Good afternoon, everybody. This is Bonnie Vandermeulen, Training Coordinator for Wisconsin Facets. On behalf of our entire Wisconsin Facets staff, I'd like to thank you for joining us today. Today, the title of our webinar is Yes, Your Child Can Work, and I am pleased to introduce to you today Kathy Tuttle. Kathy is the Transition Improvement Grant Northern Regional Coordinator and supports CESA 8, 9, and 12 for the Transition Improvement Grant. She lives in the Land of Lake area, and her office is in CESA 9 in Tomah. Prior to joining the TIG grant team, she was an educator for over 25 years in Baraboo, Wisconsin. During those years, she taught students with disabilities K through 12, and most recently, she was the district transition coordinator and a high school classroom teacher for students with cognitive disabilities. Kathy pioneered transition improvement in her district and Sauk County. She left a legacy of strong post-secondary outcomes for students and families. She brings experience and a can-do spirit to transition planning for students with disabilities in Wisconsin. It is my pleasure today to introduce to you Kathy Tuttle. Kathy?
Greetings, everyone. And today it's noon, so happy lunchtime. I am here today to talk about Yes, Your Child Can Work, or another way to think about that is employment happens. And as you look at this, the future is so bright, and that's because I believe this is very exciting times for students in Wisconsin. Agencies and teachers and families are working together collectively to increase opportunities for students to obtain community work experiences. We know that students who have 2 paid jobs in high school are 5 times more likely to be gainfully employed as young adults. October also is National Disability Employment Awareness Month. I would like you to listen to this community, share their message. Obviously, we'd like to see everyone embrace this message that their community is better when we work together, and everyone deserves a chance and a choice for paid employment.
I am capable.
I am willing. I can.
We know we need to provide a workplace that's open to everyone.
And we recognize people's talents and abilities.
But we wouldn't know unless we give our youth with disabilities an opportunity.
Because it's what people can do that matters.
Our community is better when everybody works.
Contact Holman High School to learn more.
And this video, the video there very clearly shows a community in action, and also this was a Let's Get to Work school, which was a statewide grant with incredible outcomes for students and employment. So today, we've kicked it off. We know we can make this happen. Here is the session overview. There are employment statistics. I'm going to talk about partnerships, a pathway to employment, and barriers to employment and solutions, those elephants that are in the room. To start off, I would like to share some actual post-school outcome survey results from the state of Wisconsin. The post-school outcome survey is required of schools in a 5-year cycle, or they can elect to participate to provide data to state and student outcomes in the area of employment, education, and independent living. Schools collect this data by contacting students and their families 1 year after exiting high school. And as you look at this, competitively employed, so you know what that means and is defined for this survey as 90 days consecutive or cumulative minimum wage or higher, 20 hours or more a week in a setting with workers who do not have disabilities. This chart shows in 2015. And here is 2016. These are all on the PDF that you received, so you can kind of look these over and think about what do these post-school outcomes mean for students in Wisconsin. These are encouraging statistics. You know, there's always more work to do, But statistics, as we know, only tell part of the story. Every single person in this country has skills and talents to contribute to the workplace, and every single person has the inherent right to work. That's a powerful quote. And we're here today to talk about partnerships and paths to a working life. This picture shows an example of a partnering and a path to employment. It's a picture of Brandon from Wisconsin working at St. Joseph Ministry Hospital over in Marshfield through the Project Search. The website for Project Search is shared in the resources, and we'll get to that later in this presentation. But it is another powerful statewide and national program to increase student work experiences. That means, when you looked at that, it says, what does a working life look like? And it's going to be different for all. And it all ties to the IEP for your child. We want to entitle employment the terms and the regulations that guide your child's IEP team. One of the terms that you have heard through the years is least restrictive environment. In general terms, this means that each student with a disability is only removed from general education to the extent needed to meet IEP goals. Well, this also applies to employment. It makes sense, right? In 2012, the Office on Special Education addressed the fact that the least restrictive environment for employment is in the community. This means community-based integrated employment should be the first discussion had in an IEP meeting before you discuss alternate settings for employment. Now keep in mind, employment doesn't necessarily mean full-time, and that's why it's different for all individuals. That full document that I'm talking about can be found online, and it's also in the resource slide at the end of this presentation. This brings us to a new, but not really different game in town, and that is the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, and you may have heard this called WIOA. So what is that? Well, it is a new federal legislation. It's part of the Rehab Act, which governs more than just schools, and it replaced another act, which is the Workforce Innovation Investment Act. And it's really not different. It just instead looks at a strengthening of that original intent of the transition plan requirements that are in our IDEA law of 2004, which is part of your child's entitlement through the IEP. So what does WIOA mean for implementation? You know, how is it implemented, and what does it mean for schools? And there are three main shifts, and keep in mind that this law took full effect. Parts of it were in effect before, but it took full effect in July of 2016, which was just a few months ago. So the first shift under WIOA is that the schools and the Division of Vocational Rehab, or DVR, have an increased responsibility to work together. Why? That is because with WIOA, students and youth 14 to 24 cannot go to work for sub-minimum wage without first exploring community employment through DVR services. So schools and DVR are working together. You may when you come to meetings, you're going to hear more about the Division of Vocational Rehab. Statewide, I am seeing DVR counselors in schools with office hours. There are creative and additional ways that DVR counselors are coming into schools and meeting with teachers, parents, and students. Shift number 2 is that the transition services and the post-secondary transition plan, here comes another acronym, PTP, which is part of your individual educational plan. Those are now aligned to the pre-employment transition services, here comes another one, PREETs, that's outlined in the WIOA. So why did we do that? Why is there this shift to have these transition services aligned to these pre-employment? Well, they're aligned because WIOA tells us schools are responsible for providing pre-employment transition services in conjunction with DVR. Both the schools and DVR are responsible to provide these services for students, and they're responsible to share. We're responsible to share what we're doing with doing with students and for students and with families with DVR. So they're aligned. Now, of course, you're saying, well, what are pre-eds? And here are what they are, and they are the same for schools, and they are the same for DVR through the WIOA. So the first is job exploration and counseling. Well, that can be many things, and I want to bring up one that you may hear with your students, especially if you happen to be parents of younger students. All students in 6th grade will be starting to look at career exploration through something called academic career planning. Now, this is happening for all students. It's a regular ed initiative, but it is going to impact our kids because all kids are going to be learning more and more about career exploration and job exploration. And so ask teachers about that. Ask about academic career plans. Ask about what kind of business tours are going on, presentations at school by employers, career fairs. Those are all job exploration. The next is work-based learning, which is learning what it means to be an employee. And that's a path, okay? It's a path for all of us, and we're going to talk more about that. But that's working in the school store, delivering mail within the school, volunteering at the local library, the local humane society, completing an internship, doing a paid work experience with DVR. Those are all examples. Counseling on post-secondary ed or higher ed programs. That can be meeting with the school counselor, like I said. Presentations by college fairs, touring colleges. Think College, which is also one of the resources. The next is social and independent living skills training. That's that knowing how to get around and use your community that's around you. So those are those social skills classes. They are your family and consumer ed classes, social media safety, community activities such as shopping and banking and learning how to get around. Either it's taxi or by using any kind of mass transit that happens to be in your area. Okay? When you're at your IEP meetings and you start talking about transition services, teachers may split these into two, community and school and home. So you may see a little split in that. And your input into that will be critical. And last pre-eds is instruction and self-advocacy, which may include peer mentoring, using something that's going to be coming out soon, and I hope it'll be posted on our site, Wisconsin Transition Improvement Grant site, and that is a new Wisconsin Transition app. How cool is that, right? And it will be for families and students. So that is something to be looking at. You're also this is also where self-directed IEP meetings come in and getting parent input, and also when the student starts driving that IEP and starts sharing at their own meetings. Isn't that what it's all about? Shift number 3 is community job exploration and experiences during transition years. Those are going to increase. We're going to be starting those. They are already occurring, and so there's going to be even more emphasis on what does it mean to start building those skills. And why? Well, that's because through WIOA, LEAs are no longer able to purchase transition services that involve training in work that typically pays sub-minimum wage. And what does that look like? That means that school districts cannot purchase services so as students can go to a work facility and work at sub-minimum wage work tasks and at a sub-minimum wage. And that means even they can't go there and volunteer. They cannot be part of it even if they are paid minimum wage. It is because it is sub-minimum wage work. Okay? So that's a shift. That is having schools say, okay, that is not We're not allowed to purchase that, so we're going to be working a lot with community-based integrated employment. So I like to learn through stories, and so I want to show and take a look at what integrated community employment can look like for a young man who might not work 40 hours a week. So here is James' story.
Welcome to the Jason Lacine Agency. We work here. I'm Jason Lacine. I'm an agent for American Family Insurance. James works for me 2 afternoons a week. He does general clerical tasks, and he helps keep the office neat.
I am James, and I am 18 years old. I go to Hellman High School.
This is James's first paid job. We put a lot of effort into making sure it matched his skills. If you show him something once or twice, James will get it.
I'm really impressed with his work ethic. He's a hard worker.
James wants to work like everyone else. He gets bored and frustrated when he's not accomplishing something. It's all about work with him.
We use picture cards to communicate in simple sign language. Everyone in the office has a reference card with simple signs. James also uses picture cards to keep track of his office duties. Before he came, there were tasks that needed to be done, but there simply wasn't enough time in the day. James takes care of those now. He's a huge help.
We always wanted our son to be a contributing member of society. I tell him you're a tax-paying citizen now.
And that is James' story. And that, as they said, that was in Holman. Again, that was a Let's Get to Work school. And there are many Let's Get to Work schools around the state, some very rural, as it up in Kewaunee County, and New Auburn is also, and some that are more in a metropolitan area. So that website, the Let's Get to Work website, is also in our resources. So I want to switch now and just think about, we've seen this idea of community-based employment and what are the systems that support that employment. And if you look here, we have 3 main systems, and they all intersect, and the intersection is opportunity. You have schools and families, and then you have ADRC, which is the gateway to long-term care, and then the division of vocational rehab. Usually when we present this presentation, we have DVR with us and ADRC, and they have a part of this, and then they share their information. So to get more information on them, I would suggest you can go to this resource, which is the Transition Action Guide, and that link is also in your resources. This living document, and it changes a lot, so you may not see hard copies of this around, but this living document, it will, there I can go down, this will tell what are the roles of the different folks that are in the employment process and in the transition process. The student's role, the parents and families' role, the teacher's role. So it's a great resource. Overwhelming, lots of tabs, lots of pages, but definitely a great resource. Because moving into the adult system with all the agencies and partners can be overwhelming and confusing. In fact, I just got a text from a friend of mine, very close friend of mine whose daughter has a disability, and she is starting this process, and she's a special education teacher, and she said, I should know. And she says, help me out here, direct me, give me some information. So it is overwhelming. And it's not always easy to determine who does what, but the Transition Action Guide is that great resource that highlights the roles and the expectations. Because a partnership that is critical in transition planning for employment is that partnership between the school and you and family. We already know it's important, but I want to specifically show research that has shown that family involvement leads to better post-school employment outcomes, and family personal networks to find employment are key factors for employment success. Your participation in your child's work experience and job search is a major component to success in employment. We also know that through research that two-paid jobs, I said this before, two-paid jobs while in high school make students 5 times more likely to have employment as an adult. That's the goal we're striving for, to assist students in becoming college and career ready. And there are supports out there. This is not everyone do it alone. This is everyone do it together. It truly takes a village. So it's critical when you're talking about planning for employment to consider the components of career exploration. We need to consider all of these things, the culture of the business, environments your child thrives in, skills, to make sure it's a match. We all want to work at jobs we love, so this is an important part of the process. Parents have so much critical information that they see at home regarding their child's skills and strengths and abilities that can add to the process. And more important is that you share this information with all the team players, especially the schools when they're starting to plan early for employment. I just heard a parent last night, and she actually, her son is later in our presentation, and she was talking about how they came up with this idea for her son. And it was interesting. You know, she gave some input, but then it was such a team effort. But she was so grateful for all the ideas, and that she didn't have to do it alone. One thing that's, like I talked about earlier, that you're going to hear, especially parents of 6th graders if you're out there, and also now as each year, because the academic and career planning process is going to be starting in all schools as of next fall. And so they're going to be starting in 6th grade, and they're going to be creating these academic career plans. They're going to work on knowing and exploring and planning and then actually doing it. So this is regular ed, but our kids are going to be part of that. So listen for those conversations, because parent engagement is part of their mission also. Here's another thing you're going to hear that ties into that job exploration, and that is you're going to hear college and career ready IEPs. And that is Tony Evers' mission for our state, for all students. And so now the IEPs have been, we've redesigned, no change in laws, no change in what the IEP is providing or entitlements, but we're going to change the process somewhat so that we really look at strengths and preferences, and we start thinking about what are those college and career ready skills that kids need, starting even in preschool. It's not always about knowledge, right? It's about habits and attitudes and expectations along with the knowledge and skills. So I'm going to switch gears again, and we're just going to explore a little bit more on that path to employment. We've talked about this exploration, but we talked, you know, from a perspective of families, we can all think about children being ready to work and how they are involved in kind of experiences all their life that really are preparing us, right? And so we wanted to kind of have you think about transferable skills, those skills and abilities that people have from all parts of their life, not just from work. Everyone has transferable skills. Sometimes we don't think of those little things that we do as leading to something that can transfer into a job. The same is true for our kids and for students, for teachers, for students, for families, for their children. Pay close attention to the skills that you already have, that your kids already have. Some examples of transferable skills for Mike might be all of these. Think about how those might transfer into work, how they might be helpful on a job application or as they're starting to develop a resume. I had a student who loved pushing a cart. That pushing a cart thing, I always look at this and remember my student. He loved pushing a cart. It was just, I don't know what it was, but he loved it. So we looked for opportunities where he was on the go, right? And so we had students who were doing work experiences at the hospital, and he was put in charge of pushing the cart, which was used for delivering mail. he was not able to do all parts of that task. He could hand papers over, but he had a partner with him that did some of the very alphabetizing and getting things in the right order. But he pushed that cart, and he was engaged, and this was a transferable skill. He'd been pushing a cart since he had started at the grocery store with those little tiny ones when he was, you know, in preschool. So transferable skills. And these are some just kind of, if you're a visual learner, think about all those things that your son or daughter might be doing at home. Some of those skills may be things they don't like to do, which it is important to know what you don't like to do. I had environments that kids don't like. You know, where you go in the community where it's very safe and it's an environment and you know, that is wonderful for your kid. I had a student who could do a task. Look at the folding towels. She could fold towels. She really liked it. And so she was at the hospital, again at the hospital, where we had some wonderful experiences and sites that kids got their first crack at work experience. And she would fold towels. Well, she was great. And she was in the PT area where people were coming and going. She did a great job, you know. Well, we thought, well, great, there's a job, you know, we'll try another setting. So she gets out and about and see if, we took her to the library where they had some towels that were folded once a week for something they were doing in their jobs, or dusting shelves or something. And she was in a back room. Well, this young lady told us in no uncertain terms that this was not, and she was nonverbal, and she told us very strongly this was not her thing. And it's very easy to see what was the drive there. At the hospital, it was social. At the library, she didn't get to see people. So keep those things in mind about when you're going in the community and what are the things that work well for your student and your child. You have all heard the saying, it's all about who you know when it comes to employment. Well, I want to let you know about an activity you could use so your family can start thinking specifically about who you know, okay? This activity is called resource mapping, and it will identify people that might be able to support your family on this journey to employment. There's a great tool for you that includes a way to record your mapping activity, and that tool is the self-directed transition planning tool. And I sent this resource ahead of time with this webinar. If it's not, I will resend it to Bonnie and with the link, which is also at the end of this resource. And it is another tool by Let's Get to Work. And share the results of this tool with your child's teacher and case manager, as they will be able to use the results as part of the student's transition assessment. So I'm just going to, it doesn't go to there, so let me just go to that. And this is what it looks like. And on page 5, I'm sorry, I hope this doesn't make you dizzy. On page 5, there yet? Sorry. On page 5 at the bottom, or it's page 6 actually, sorry. Connecting for employment exploration. People we know, where's that workplace, their community involvement, and how you would connect, okay? Just think outside the box. You don't have to stay with those boxes. How many people do you know and workplaces and their community involvement, and how would you connect? You may not access all of them, but sometimes it's just good to map that. Sometimes you don't know who you know. And so here's an activity that you can use and to share those results with your team and your teachers. Another opportunity is volunteering. This is kind of a cool site. It's called www.volunteermatch.org, and it's a cool site that can give you opportunities in your community. In small rural communities, it may not show up, but it did show up even up in Ashland, Wisconsin. We did find some places that were listed on this volunteermatch.org. Be aware that there are fair labor laws that disapprove of volunteer labor in for-profits. Most volunteer opportunities are in nonprofits. So please keep that in mind, and your teachers should be well aware of that also. I would also contact school counselors or a teacher to see what's available and ask schools if they've had something called an Amazing Race, which is where students get out and look at places in the community, or maybe the schools are working with business partnerships through the academic career planning. But as a parent, you could also have, So think about that as the volunteering. Keep track of those activities and the people that your son or daughter work with, and while they're doing volunteer work, because you never know who might be a future reference or an employer. Another thing you can do, and this is what I was talking about, the academic career plans and the Amazing Race and job shadows. These often take place in schools. I bring it up because sometimes you just having your child interview somebody in your family that is doing work that they're interested in or they've admired is always very a fun thing. I had my daughter go to Take Your Daughter to Work Day. I had her go to a job site with one of my best friends who did a totally different job. She was an appraiser, a real estate appraiser, totally different than what she saw from me as a in the helping professions and doing a traditionally, a woman's role. And I had her go outside that. So think about these types of activities that could lead to employment or job exploration. We've talked about how to break into the world of paid community employment, but there's also another great tool that families across our state are starting to look at: self-employment, either through being a sole proprietor, SP, or an LLC, or some way of being their own employment. And which an interesting fact that in the northern part of the states, the more rural you are, there is a higher incidence of self-employment. So it's kind of what happens when you're in an area where there isn't a lot of employment. You make employment. Young people can also be entrepreneurs, create their own businesses, but I want to show you an example of a team that knew this young man could work and how the team made it happen. And this is the example: Adam Can. Adam Can's from Stoughton, and the exciting thing is that last night with a group of teachers, Deb, who you'll see on this video, zoomed in, virtually talked to a group of teachers about this process. Because this story right from this is a few years old. He's now been out of school, and so she had more to add to the story and the increasing, and she talked about the process. And that's where it was just enlightening to me, and also how she talked about the different thresholds that parents have being able to create these paths. So she would be if you ever hear her speaking, I would listen to her. She is a great resource as a parent, from a parent's perspective. So I want to show you Adam's story. Please look at how his interests and his preferences and his strengths come through.
I'm Adam Notstad. I run a company called Adam Can Recycling. I help businesses in our community with their recycling needs and keep valuable aluminum from ending up in a landfill. How do I do it? I crush cans. Adam Can Recycling began with this team of professionals who wanted to create a job that took advantage of my skills.
Well, Adam's real good at pushing a button. He enjoys the interaction with the people around him. And he loves loud noises. Actually, Adam is louder than the machine is.
I see Adam as a young entrepreneur who is just excited to get started in the work world.
Adam Can Recycling is just about perfect for me. I take aluminum cans and turn them into gold. Here's how. First, my clients fill up a bin with aluminum cans. Then we collect the cans and bring them to our facility.
Hi, Adam. Hi, Melissa. Hey, Amy. We got more cans from Cellular Dynamics.
Thank you.
Melissa marks the bins with the company's name. She gloves up to keep clean. Then she extracts the cans. Lots of them. Next, meet the little squeeze, a hydraulic-powered can crusher with 4 tons of crushing power. She fills it with cans, 40 in all. Next, she prepares my switch. Wirelessly, it controls the little squeeze. Safety is very important. To start the machine, Melissa must hold down 2 switches.
Hey, you gotta push your button.
And now, it's showtime. That's music to my ears. Did I mention that I like loud noises? Out come the cans, much smaller. When our clients' cans are crushed, we take them to the recycling center. That's where they're turned into gold. They're weighed, and I get paid. We post the totals on my website, so all my clients can track their history. This is data they can use in their sustainability programs, and lets them do exactly what they've done for the environment. I even have a Facebook page with the weekly recycling team. How am I doing? Ask one of my first clients. It all started thanks to Sassy Bluford, who was asked by a neighbor to donate cans to me.
And I said, sure. And then I thought, hey, I work at St. Mary's and we have lots of cans. Maybe I could get St. Mary's to give you cans too.
Not only did St. Mary's sign on, but so did the residents living there.
Thank you for... They were really excited. They heard about Adam's story. They heard about his business venture and his desire to create his own livelihood.
I had some good news to give them.
Your total contribution is 2,772 cans.
They were just excited. They were ready to help. Well, we can do this. We can help. That's pretty cool. I had no idea that it would turn out to be like this, and it's very gratifying. We really all long to be a part of something greater than ourselves. So our goal for 2012 would be 15,000 cans. Oh, I am so ready. I'm definitely going to help. You have that effect on people, Adam. Yeah.
He's had a really good year.
Reuse, reduce, respect. And if anyone can help you recycle, Adam can.
Every time I see this, I smile, and I just want to give you the rest of the story since Deb was with us last night. Adam left school, and so as in all of our jobs, you know, remember when you start jobs and it's like so exciting, but then stuff, you know, the everydayness starts to set in. And it started to, so he hired someone. They hired a young person to work with him that also had a disability, but had a different skill set. And so he's doing a little bit more of what you see that job coach do. Well, it kind of fired him up. It fired him up and gave him a new engagement in the whole process. And he has over 56 different places that they are going to and collecting cans. Facebook has been incredible for him. He has a business team, which the mom is not She's part of that team, but she's not the leader of that team. There's a lot of his case managers, so because she works full time. And he has moved this into a job that he is at and involved in this 5 days a week, 5 hours a day. So either with the collecting them, which is part of his job support. So it's just, I love that I can tell you the rest of the story, excuse me, after hearing it last night from Deb. So that is the rest of the story. There are barriers. We all know that in every challenge in life and every great idea, there are things and obstacles that we need to face. And one of the barriers that families have is the idea of, and when thinking about their child going to work, might be the fear of losing their benefits. If you have long-term supports, that's a real concern. But it often sometimes comes with misinformation. It is a fear. So here is some information to help. One of the best ways to learn about your child's benefits and how beginning a job will affect their benefits is to talk to a work incentives benefits specialist in your area. And there's the link. It's also at the end. There are many types of programs that will assist so that students can have earned income, even if they are on benefits. The job of a work incentive benefits specialist is to assist individuals with disabilities with making an informed choice about the impact of work and what it will have on their current benefits. They will include how work will change your cash payment, the medical coverage, which is critical, continued eligibility for programs, and any other questions you may have. We have provided a website here on this slide so you can get more information. If you are involved with the Division of Vocational Rehab, this is a service that they will purchase through different agencies and within your community that can provide this. Another place to go for the first, if you need more information, is your Aging and Disabilities Resource Center, but be sure it's a work incentives benefits specialist. You know how big government programs are and how many pages are in those, the many comings and, the laws and ins and outs. These folks are specialists, so they are a great resource to get the information you need to look at this challenge and this very real fear. The other barrier or challenge is transportation. Even in very urban and metropolitan areas, this can be it can be an issue. So here is some options because it's a concern, and especially if the work site is outside of the school day and on nights and on weekends. Even in rural areas, there are options, and finding those options, to be honest, it is difficult, but that's why you have a team. Listed on this slide are some ideas of how you can work with others to find transportation to and from work. Also, take a look at your who you know list from if you use that self-directed transition planning tool and you do that resource mapping, there may be possibilities there as well. Once you find transportation, well, then paying for it can be a bigger issue. There are options to assist you in getting started with the cost of transportation as well. So the personal income, DVR, long-term care, Social Security work incentives, those are all different options. And your team who have these specialties in those areas are the ones that you can tap into. As part of your child's education, we've been talking about transition, we're talking about work. I want to bring up another important planning process that often can involve agencies, but it's part of your child's IEP. And that's the post-secondary transition plan, or the PTP. Now, you may not hear teachers call it the PTP, but you will hear teachers, and you should bring up the idea of transition. Because the post-secondary transition plan was developed is part of our IDEA law, and it is developed for students starting at age 14 in the state of Wisconsin. in the fall of 2012, back when I was teaching, just when I was finishing, before I took this job, the Department of Public Instruction started using this more, it's a web-based tool, and it's called the Post-Secondary Transition Plan. There was always transition in the IEP. It has been there. It had a different number. It was an I-8. It's always been there, but now it's called the PTP. So this is a tool to plan to assist school districts in documenting post-high school transition needs to define the process of transition, and it's used as a tool to provide the opportunity for all the IEP members to offer input into the transition plan. So looking at my time here, I have time, and I'm going to go to a site where you can learn more about this. I know I'm giving you lots of information. Please know that it's all at the end. Please know that we're talking about a path to employment, and I've talked about your role in that path and the school's role in that path, and ideas that you can say, yes, my child can work. So I'm going to just go out of here a minute and go into here. And I'm going to go, one place to show you is this is our website from the Wisconsin Transition Improvement Grant. So a lot of things are on this site. We have the WIOA that I talked about, that is on there. We have a checklist also on this site. You can quickly go to see that PTP up there. You can go there. Before I leave my site though, our site, there's a calendar of events statewide. So I'm not sure if Facet's calendar, if we have that on here, but we have not only our agency, but other agencies, so you can look on there if there's transition nights around your area. Here on the 14th is Looking Forward, and that's at Madison Area Technical College. They have a kind of a career fair, accommodations for students with disabilities. So you can see we have a calendar, Facets has a calendar, the Wisconsin Statewide Parent Initiative, WISPE has a calendar also. So if we go here, and I go back up here, here is that PTP, okay, Post-Secondary Transition Plan, and we have down here, this is the Parent and Youth Guide. So I've given you so much information, so this is something where you can go back and read again when the IEP comes up, or when you want, I know I want to start planning for this. And so this tells you what is that PTP, which is actually a way to plan employment goals and education goals and transition services to meet those goals, and then also to create a course of study that will meet those goals. So there's a lot of information there, and there's also for the youth. You know, there's a youth guide. And if you go back to the site, if you want to see what that looks like, there's even a demonstration site, which this is what the the site looks like that they're using. And you can go in and look at it before, so you kind of know, oh, this is what they're going to be doing and creating. They may not create it on that website right there at that time, but all these questions will be discussed, such as you're going to discuss the measurable post-secondary goals. And these are based on a transition assessment. So the teacher's going to talk about what are the assessments that we did. Then they're going to talk about what kind of education does the student plan. And I'm just going to pick on-the-job training so we can go through. And then you have to talk about what is the actual employment goal. What is your area of employment? And I can very quickly go through this, but the student may want to be something in health science. So you see that what you're doing is looking at what are the education goals, what are the employment goals. There may be independent living goals that you may want to add, and remember those could be financial literacy, not just knowing how to cook and how to take care of yourself. You can think further. And then the goals in the IEP will be connected. And then you look at transition services. Now this is where I was talking about that shift. Do you see how these are all related and aligned with those PREETs, which is part of the WIOA? Okay? So I wanted to show you that so that you have an idea. This is what teachers are, what they're doing behind the scenes to fill this out, and you will get something at the end, okay, that will be part of the IEP, so look for that. So planning for employment and action, remember, the path to employment is different for different people, and families and schools and agencies working together can facilitate successful employment outcomes. So to finish up, and then we'll have some time for questions, I'm going to show one more story of that will show employment in action.
My name is Alexis Green, and I work at Best Buy. I pull, I stack, I clean up, and I do screens. A cat pick me up from school. I come straight here, find Bob, do my time card.
When Alexis first started at Best Buy, there was a job coach that accompanied her and taught her the routines and the jobs that needed to be done. As Alexis became more comfortable with the job coach was able to kind of fade away, and Alexis started to rely on natural supports, which would be Joe, which is one of the employees there.
When Bob knows Alexis will be here, he has me do other things in the store that he needs help with, and I know Alexis will be okay in the media department, farming and pulling.
It's pretty exciting, and for her it's such a success. Alexis's worker skills grew, her communication skills grew, and her social skills grew. And I think that's something we maybe would not have been able to foster in the high school setting. And then the really neat part is that she's getting a paycheck.
I help my mom out when she needed. I give to my mom to get something to eat and give her like gas in our gas tank.
Alexis' internship at Best Buy helped open Alexis's eyes that she can pursue employment at some of these big companies. And it helps her understand that, yeah, maybe I do need a little bit of help at first, but eventually I will be able to do this on my own.
I'm a hard worker. I take responsibility of myself. You got to tell me when to do something, I'll do it. And I'm a good listener. And I'm friendly. And I just like working.
I want to share about a little interesting back part of that is that Alexis wanted to work in childcare, and they set her up to work in childcare. After she had been on that rotation for about 4 weeks, they said, okay, this is what your employment goal was, and how's it going at the childcare, you know, at the daycare? And she said, this is not my thing. She says, I really don't like kids. And she found that by giving experiences, and that's what that's all about, a path to employment. With that, I end this part of the presentation. Please know that there are resources at the end. And if there are any questions that have come up, Bonnie, I'd feel free to answer them, and we have a little time left for questions.
At this time, does anyone have any further questions? I have none typed into the question box at this time, but if anyone has a question, if you want to type it in at this time. And just to sum up, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Kathy for her wonderful presentation today with lots of great resources that we'll be able to use at a later date. Any other questions? Well, seeing no other questions, Kathy, any closing comments?
I just wanted, I quickly put up there that there are coordinators around the state. I'm in the northern region, but there is also a coordinator in over by CISA 7, which is Jenny Jacobs, and we have Jennifer in the Milwaukee area. Brian is in the southern part, Brenda's in the western, and Lene is central. So there is a TIG coordinator in your area, and if you want more information, things that I shared, please feel free to contact any one of them.
Okay, I'm just checking. There was someone that had their hands raised, but I did not see the question come across. But if you do have a personal question, is there a way, Kathy, that they can contact you directly?
Yes, right down here on our webpage, they can get my email address.
Okay, great.
And
so again, go ahead.
And my phone number is there too, always available.
Okay, great. Well, again, at this time, I'd like to thank Kathy for her very informative presentation today. This concludes our webinar. We'd like to thank all of you for joining us today. Please remember that Wisconsin Facets has over 100 scheduled trainings and webinars, and we will be having some in November and December to close out the year. Please check our website calendar and register for any upcoming trainings that might be of interest to you. And please watch for the short evaluation that will be coming your way in a little while. Have a great rest of the day. And again, Kathy, thank you for your presentation today. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Have a great day, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye now.